Hi everyone. All right, welcome to the space. New and returning, always a pleasure. So let's talk about the Saturn ingress, meaning when we move forward. Right, we're not degressing, we are ingressing. So in the last time, well, let's start simply. Saturn works usually in 2.5 year cycles per each sign, right? It takes 30 years averagely for Saturn to go all the way around the wheel, right? And to come back in and on yourself. This is why at age 28 or so, from 28 to 30, you have your first Saturn return. 58 to 60, your second Saturn return. And usually if we get to be 98, 100, that's a square, Saturn squaring itself. Usually we die by then, right? Because Saturn represents our health and time and our bodies, and it's like things just break down over time in a physical sense of Saturn. Saturn very much represents the material world. There's a lot of that earthly realm. To me, Saturn is what holds everything together. It gives us structure in this place. Although at its highest frequency, from what I can gather, it also gives the greatest spiritual wisdom that a person can gain in their life. And it's usually the biggest lesson. So, I know most here follow tropical or Western astrology, but I'd like to mention a little bit of the differences, although they're always neighbors to one another. So tropically, this ingress of Saturn moving into the next sign would be moving into Pisces on the 7th of March, 2023. In sidereal, which basically represents what's in the sky, this is moving forward into Aquarius on January 18th, 2023. That particular date, the South Node is also pulling Saturn's energy really powerfully. So, again, I know most here are looking at this in a Piscean form. The thing about this is that, especially when it comes to Saturn, Pisces and Aquarius both have actually very similar frequencies. Although one is air and one is water, they both have this deep level of let's read from this book. It's called Saturn: A New Look at an Old Devil by Liz Green. It's from the Wiser book publishing company, which every book I've ever read, or even decks that come up from this place, it's from Wells, Maine, are absolutely fabulous. And if you're working through any Saturn or want to know more about it, this is not like a cookbook kind of book. It's really in depth. Liz Green is quite profound in her knowledge. So let's read this for a second. Again, Pisces, Aquarius, because really it's I believe, I know, I believe, or where a belief then becomes a knowing. You know what I mean? Like, you know it in your heart. Your mind and your head and your heart are in the same space. Okay. It says people who are strongly Aquarian or Piscean in temperament, who have not yet developed a purpose which permits them participation in a larger expression, are often lost creatures. And it is perhaps more difficult for this kind of temperament now because of the idea of group consciousness not quite being a reality. Right? Now, let's give some examples of contrast here. It says the average Taurian personality is concerned with his or her security and this sort of outlet, this natural outlet of expression. The average Libran with themselves and their personal relationships. The Geminian with their education. But the Aquarian and or Piscean has no personal concerns. And if they are not yet sensitive to the more universal concerns, which are the natural expression of these signs, they are left with no concerns at all. It is no small wonder that so many alcoholics and drug addicts are strongly Piscean or Neptunian by temperament, and that so many of the mentally ill cope with Aquarian or Uranian energies. Now, in ways of purpose, as I know this word is used quite frequently now, I want to find my purpose. What is my purpose? Sometimes your purpose may be to do materially, physically, Saturn, all the things that you're doing, but to Cancer, the other side of that, feel different about it. Feel fulfilled, and whatever that definition is, but you know, there's a fine line here, right? Universal concerns. This is important to tap into the whole energy of it all, right? But one must know, as you are a human, what your, again, concerns are, because to have none, to have no purpose in a sense is a direction, right? Think of Capricorn, think of either a square to Pisces, which is a lesson, goes into Sagittarius direction, or a sextile to Aquarius is direction. And realizing that the process in and of itself is learning, but it's okay to have a direction. It's okay to have a goal. It's good to understand that we are all connected, yes, but if you think about, again, how many alcoholics, drug addicts, people that are apathetic, right? Like, oh, I don't care, you know, I don't give a fuck, doesn't matter to me, you know, just really dismissive. Say in a collective sense, what kind of energy does that create? That's not a loving energy. Do you know what I mean? It's not even an accepting energy. It's a negative passive, right? And so you want to know, Saturn, where you stand, but not use Saturn in the negative of restricting, okay, well, I believe this and you believe that, so now there's Saturn, a wall between us. Or I know this about, like, I've been learning about this is what I've been gaining for you know, this is what I've been studying or now know, quote unquote, about, and someone else has a different opinion. Oh, now we have a wall in between. That's not the point. It's a deeper understanding of the connection, that it's okay. We're all individuals, but we're all still connected. Okay? Now, if we do take this more in, say the Saturn in Pisces. Let's read this. It says Saturn is the representative. Saturn is representative in his disguised and baser form as the most personal kind of power, that which a person seizes for self-protection through manipulation of his environment. It is a man's defense mechanism which is necessary for a long time while unfolding consciousness needs defending. However, when Saturn is found in Pisces or in the 12th house, the time has come for the scaffolding to be taken down, for the inner structure is nearly complete. And stripping this away is initially like stripping off one's outer skin and exposing the raw and tender area beneath. It says, as opposite to the 6th house, The 12th disorganizes that which the 6th house has put in order and offers chaos instead. So the structure is still necessary, right? If you don't have structure, your own boundaries, your own belief systems, know who you are, right? These things, asking these questions, and it reminds me of that video we did where we were shooting the arrow and it kept being off. And then I was like, oh, let me overcompensate. Like I keep going left. Let me try to really shoot right so I can try to get in the middle. It made it even more off, right? Sometimes with Saturn, it's like, okay, if you have to, again, have a point of direction, you have to have a concern, a direction, goals. It's okay to have goals in this life. It's okay. It's okay. So you focus in on, I want to do this. I am trying to hit the arrow right in the bullseye. And if you're off, we'll check in with where your structure. How are you standing? Where are you standing? How are you holding yourself? Are you breathing? Are you emotional about something? And then you settle back in and try again. Because Saturn comes with practice, right? It's karma. We have to pay it. We have to work towards it. Now, the beautiful thing to me is that I feel as if, especially if we're looking at this, say we are looking at this mostly as Pisces, Saturn and Pisces. Well, this relates back to 1994 to 1996. You could think of that time frame. I know some of you were born around then. That is also when Pluto went through Scorpio. Saturn was in Pisces. My God, no wonder people went all out in certain ways. Some went all out towards spirituality and opening these places. Some people went real dark, right? It's like one went on one side, one went on the other. But again, that is not, at least from what I can gather, that is not the purpose of Saturn. I mean, to separate it, but meaning an ego, but to separate what is healthy or not, what is good or not, what is light and what is dark, right? What is light and what is shadow? Yes. Because otherwise it's gray and it's murky. Aquarius is the color gray. Most Aquarius, strong Aquarius people, they love to wear the color gray. Strong Saturn people wear the color gray. But if you put gray with Pisces, what happens is you got somebody with cement boots on in the ocean, and you don't want that, right? Because then you can't swim. So what's cool about this, although especially the ones that were born then, or anything you had to endure then, I can think back to myself. That was a pretty strong time. This actually can represent the end of suffering, okay, and the release of toxicity. It can even be like a karma completion, not in totality, but with certain stages of your karma. There can be great completion with that. In relation to Saturn and Pisces as well, I feel like this can be a Saturn and Aquarius also, but you know, Aquarius is also very scientific. Pisces is more spiritual. You know, it's more godly based. So this can very much be an inward time, but you want to make sure that you're not being an escapist, okay? Because Saturn equals structure and Pisces is illusion. Let's say that's positive, negative, right? Let's say Pisces is spiritual elevation and then Saturn is restriction. Right, we want to try to find it's a little bit of a fine path, right? It's a little bit of I think, is it Matthew, right? The path is narrow, and few walk upon it. But I actually believe that there are more people than we would maybe even like to, that we're told, that are in this spiritual space, that are opening up in these places that are deeply emotional and healing sexual traumas or traumas from the past, not even just yours, but that of deep in history, right? But that's also part of the tricky part of it, is like acknowledging where you are and feeling strong about that, right? Because I wrote strength and solidification in spiritual ways, right? And great compassion can also come from this. To me, Saturn and Pisces in a very high frequency could also represent where one's, okay, Sagittarius is religion, right? Where there's structure and there are rules that have already been written previous, and then people follow them, right? And to each their own. I find structure very helpful. People coming together, going to the mosque, going to temple, going to church, whatever, your prayer group, it's even your yoga class, whatever it is. It's like, if the purpose is togetherness and love and healing, then that is good. But with Pisces being purely the more spiritual aspect of it, to have some structure around that, like, oh, I'm going to pray in the morning and at night at this time and that time, making something more structured around it versus loosey-goosey, or maybe even defining it for yourself will actually create more of a solidification of your own belief system. I would also say, if any of you, some people could even start leaning a little bit more into traditional ways, or at very least, again, making a structure around, because if Pisces is the ocean, which is almost infinite, you need Saturn to show you what the edges are so that you don't float off into infinity, right? And again, that would be where you want to make sure you have your own concerns. You are concerned about yourself in the equation as an individual. Now, this doesn't mean to be selfish, of course, or overly egotistical, but we need a little bit of Mars to make things happen. We need Sun energy. We need Jupiter energy to make things. It reminds me of the masculine trinity that we talked about. For instance, if you are an Aquarius or Pisces rising, or you have, again, Uranian or Neptunian energy that's really strong. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn off the phone. It's my dentist, just a second. Hello. Sorry about that, Saturn. Gotta take care of all the Saturn too. That'll help a lot. Oh, okay, so I feel like we're gonna go through the houses, but I wanna do that in a separate video, so that we can put intentional energy, and we'll read some cards in there and put more of the feeling space. I feel like this is almost more Aquarian. We're kind of talking about it. So let me tune back in here. We're talking fast, right? Mars and Gemini. If you are highly influenced, again, Aquarius rising, Pisces rising, you have really strong Uranian energy, Neptunian energy. It could actually be Aquarius or Neptune, the way I'm seeing it, and any of the angular houses would be really strong, like 1, 4, 7, 10. These ones, because these are sort of more, the current of it is cardinal energy, so it's what defines you ultimately. 1, 4, 7, 10. These are strong. Okay. Now, the purpose we were talking about before, I wrote down that there's reward and higher purpose due to previous work. And then there's sort of like these brackets. It's like there's reward and higher purpose within due to previous inner work, right? Because this could also be a time where we kind of sink or swim, right? Like we mentioned before, you take that gray of Aquarius, that gray of Saturn, and put it on Pisces. It could be like cement shoes and go all the way to the bottom. And you have to, and Saturn will make us touch the bottom if whoever needs to be. But if you think about like an Alcoholics Anonymous, for instance, any kind of addiction, again, drug addiction, alcoholism, codependency, wherever it's heavy and it's a ingrained thing, you have to touch the bottom to be able to recognize. Sometimes we have to touch the bottom. And for those of you who have already gone down there and slammed your face against that and crawled, figured out how to ask understand there's a higher power and you need help, and you even being here is an expression of that, and well done. But I know it's hard, right? Because even when we solve that, there can still be people like that in our lives. And of course, there's still parts of us always where the work within, or how to find even our happy on a more regular basis and keep fluid and understanding about something, like be more godlike or dog-like. It takes a long time, right? Let me read you something. Just a minute. Please. Is it this one? Nope, just a second. Where is he? There he is. A buddy of mine sent this to me the other day. It says, if you can sit quietly after difficult news, if in financial downturns you can remain perfectly calm, if you can see others traveling to fantastic places without a twinge of a jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate and fall asleep after a day of running around without a drink or a pill, if you can always find contentment just where you are, you're probably a dog. Which is so interesting to me that dog and God are just the reverse word of each other, So realize whether this is, sink or swim. Because I guess this has to do with knowing the ledge, or reaching the edge of something. And again, for some, this could very well be the end of suffering. Again, like releasing some karmic toxicity, some heavy karma, and then being able to actually feel secure enough, whether this is Aquarius way up high in the sky, right, which is just as scary, or Pisces in the vast of the ocean, right? It's having security there. Because what is to know the ledge, or what is to know the ocean? There's knowledge, and when knowledge is applied, right, which is such a test of Saturn, it's like, okay, how are you going to apply what you learned? The lessons you had to endure, the hard ones especially. Saturn is difficulty, right? It is restriction, it is hardship, it is sorrow, it is all the depths of everything that's hard. But again, it gives the most beautiful wisdom if you can kind of not just intellectually answer the question, right? Get the question right on the quiz, but where you graduate, you go out into the world, and then you apply the lessons that you learned. Then you actually get to that place where a person's like, oh my God, again, there's the wisdom, right? Maybe the purpose. This sort of reinforces purpose a little bit too. Like, okay, maybe I was supposed to do that because that was my karma. And it wasn't about what you wanted or what you didn't get or whatever. It's again, it's just reinforcing this higher understanding that, well, I suppose in some way that God is real, right? That there's something bigger than us, but that we also, while we're here on earth, have such an ability to be able to control what we do, you know? Even when a person gets in trouble for something, right? Say someone does something and they get in trouble. They have a repercussion for it. They still did it all on their own. You know what I mean? And so also the acknowledgement of responsibility. And I would say if anybody has like any kind of drinking or drug problem or anything along these lines, it would be such a beautiful time to relinquish that, you know? Okay, let's read this. This is the significance of transiting Saturn that's coming from, Robert Hand. I love him, and John Townley are both really wonderful astrologers through this para research. So it says Saturn is one of the most important planets to examine in your transits. Okay, so you'd also want to look at, I would almost combine, we've talked about this many times, the bigger pieces of the pie, right? You could combine Aquarius and Pisces. Most people in their map, a house usually has a little bit of both in each house, right? So it's not like these are ever again, oh, my house ends here. There's this wall between Pisces and Aquarius. It's like, no, everything blends together. You know, some things it's harder to blend, sure. But there really is no difference. It's a perspective thing, right? So please look also to your Aquarius and your Pisces in your map, okay? It says, Saturn is one of the most important planets to examine in your transits, for it will represent the way that you see and experience the universe as you have constructed it. Let's read that again. Saturn represents, especially when a transit comes around, because to see is an aspect, right? It is a transit. Saturn will represent the way you see and experience the world, your world, as you have structured it. The location of the transiting Saturn, right, wherever Aquarius and Pisces is in your map, is going to indicate the part of life that is being examined and tested at this time. Remember, it's a little quiz, right? It's like a kind of a entry exam, or for some it is your final exam of that space, and you get to move to the next one again, get another degree, or again use that knowledge to get yourself into a good place and to feel wonderful about what you have been hard working studying on, right? And actually, Aquarius Pisces rising would probably be some of the most significant, maybe even MC too. Some of the most significant, I guess it goes back to those angular houses, 1, 4, 7, 10. Again, bigger pieces of the pie. That's going to create a lot of the collective energy. So I want you to feel strong in yourself. I want you to be concerned about how you feel and what you are, what and how you are creating or building in and of yourself, and that in the physical world. You know, I keep seeing it like it's okay to care for yourself. That doesn't create selfishness. And we can say that, we're allowed to say this here because you here are not selfish. You're probably selfless, right? That empathic nature. But that also needs structure, because what happens is, especially with Pisces energy, it's Aquarius feels this all the time, separated from people, even when they're in a group, even though they represent the group, they always feel like there's a wall around them and they can't connect emotionally. You know, there's something that's blocking them. But Pisces, it's like the emotional nature is so big that you can't, it's hard to recognize what's yours and what's not. And boundaries are so Saturn important, right? Emotional boundaries, psychic boundaries, physical boundaries, verbal boundaries. It's not this is part of being concerned about yourself. And of course, even thinking about, again, what you want to create in your life with other people. And of course, having the spiritual aspect of it. Being, I see that as above, so below. Interesting. Okay, let's keep going. It says the house that Saturn is in, I guess meaning transiting wise, represents the areas of the greatest tension in your life to which you must direct your closest attention. Okay? It says the planets that Saturn transits, say you have planets in Aquarius, Pisces, etc. If you have any stars there, this is going to represent energies in your life that are being challenged and behavioral patterns that require examination. It says most people experience Saturn transits as if Saturn were an external force that was utterly out of control. Frequently, Saturn transits can feel like a product of fate. It says, but you must understand that Saturn represents the way you program your universe at its deepest and most fundamental level, right? Saturn represents the way that any person programs their life. Consequently, the energy of Saturn transit is never truly external, right? The opposing of Saturn is the moon and the sun. How do you feel in your heart? The courage, the courage one has in their heart, the happiness that they feel, the way that really, and you know, interestingly enough, feelings are so big and so open now, right? Everybody and their mama, again, talking about everybody and their mama talking about their trauma, right? Which is awesome. Get it out, for sure. Let's get it all out, right? Pluto and Scorpio, all that, out, just poof. Poof, Neptune and Pisces, poof, Jupiter and Pisces, poof. It's like just trying to release. But the thing about that is, feelings can, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. My mother helped me to find this message. Thank you, Mom. Feelings can very much, the way we feel is going to, sure, dictate our behavior. But if you shift your behavior actually has more power. What you do, Saturn in the material world, with your time, with your money, where you expend your energy, where you have boundaries with things, these are all choices. That behavior in and of itself in the material world actually is going to, will dictate and or can create different kinds of feelings, right? Now, so again, it says Saturn, the energy of Saturn transit is never truly external, but your conscious mind, Aquarius, avoids the responsibility for what is happening. So the unconscious mind, Pisces, takes over by programming the event unconsciously. So trippy. It says you may not experience its effects until the outer world reacts and a fated, quote unquote, event occurs. which is nothing more than the universe responding to your own actions. Oh, Saturn, hallelujah. Really. Because we can't blame anything, right? Like, oh, this happened, Saturn's transiting, that happened. Oh, Pluto's over my sun, that happened. Especially, at least with Saturn. Because again, it's all a time process. It's so trippy. Okay. It says, no matter how unpleasant Saturn transits can seem at times, there are always parts of it, right? With Saturn, there's always going to be a little bit of fear. Even when you are so strong, even when you're very Saturnian in nature, there's great fear in there, right? Especially with Pluto going through Capricorn, but that's another story. It says, no matter how, if there are any unpleasantries within any Saturn transit, it's important to remember that this represents, like the changes in it, is actually representing what you really want, Leo, in life, and is helping you to achieve it. Getting you to that next step, right? It says most people are out of touch with what they truly want. As we mentioned in the beginning, with that Aquarian, Piscean energy, it has a lack of itself, right? Aquarius is like, I want to make the world a better place. I want to create a community. I want this, but they don't feel a part of it. You know, but you are a part of it. And it's important to know what you want, and as an individual, regardless of what group you're in, you know, or how big your group is. Interesting. Let's keep going. Let's read that one more time. Saturn transits represent the result of it, as it plays out, will represent what you really want in life and is helping you to achieve it. Okay? And I suppose, again, this would be very important for you to figure out what you really want. I would also say, because this word is so powerful, this is also, again, in sidereal, this is Aquarius. We go back into Leo, which is I want. And the opposing of Pisces is Virgo, which is really sitting quietly with your heart and asking yourself, like, what? Again, head and heart together. The blue lace agate is also a beautiful stone that could be helpful with your meditation also. It connects supposedly these two chakras so that you can have a easier conversation, not only with your own meditation practice, but also with other people. It says, if you thoroughly understand your needs and your wants, you will find that Saturn simply brings about their manifestation, right? I suppose when we're just floating, Pisces, then Saturn wants us to have, again, direction, to want to achieve something in this life. That doesn't mean rich and famous. It doesn't mean big fancy cars. It doesn't mean any of that, any of the sinful nature, the greed, the sexy spouse, whatever. I mean, you could have that, I guess, if you want, I guess, if that's what you want. I mean, does that match up with your soul and what's really what you're needing? I don't know. Again, you get to decide. And then I suppose if that's in line, inshallah, with what is best for your soul's progression, then it shall be yours. But again, it's I would sense it's more of just the nature of the want being a self-awareness that you are as important than any other part of the group. Whatever the circle may be. Whoever's in the pool. And it says here that the losses, for instance, actually I want to back up. if you thoroughly understand your needs and wants, interesting, needs first, then wants, you will find that Saturn will simply bring about their manifestation for you. If there are any quote-unquote losses that Saturn creates, if you will, during this time, these are things that you really do not want or you do not need. No matter how much you think you want them, let them go, especially relationships that Saturn may end, okay? Now, this is the cool thing. If we're looking at this in tropical, this whole, I know, this is unhealthy. I know I need to let go of that. I know that this happened for a reason. I know that I want this in my life. I want this kind of partner. I want this kind of environment. I want to know what it feels like to be free. I heard someone say, like I used to, you know, things like this, courage when you had it, whatever it is. If you've already been in that mentality and have been letting go and working through that heart chakra space, right, finding your own courage, Leo, then I feel like there's not much loss that comes from this. If anything, Saturn's again bring a physical manifestation of what you believe that you would like in this life. Pretty awesome. So it says again, when Saturn transits a house, be aware of this. You should pay great attention to the affairs of that house. It is not a sign that everything in that house will go wrong, but that you should direct your consciousness there and find out how you can relate to those affairs better, or become, again, Saturn stronger there, right? Some sort of refinement or some sort of, again, like a structure of it, right? Not walls to block anything out, again, or to overly protect yourself because you're afraid, but structure in who it is that you are. You know, that's what creates respect. You know that? When people know who they are, you know, and what they're willing to put up with and what they're not. It's so no escapism from it, right? Because this would be a time of trusting. Now, of course, let's see here. If another thing to be aware of is that, especially, we could look at it Aquarius, Pisces, again, this bigger piece of the pie. You want to think back to 14-ish years ago. Basically, 14 years ago was when Saturn was in Virgo, Leo, okay? And so if we're in an opposition to Saturn at that point, right? All of us, wherever it is in our map, you can go back 14 years. This will give you a kind of indication of where you are now, and there will be probably either a strengthening of faith or a test of faith. I keep seeing the words, I know you can. I know you can. Now, of course, and I know this from personal experience, although I find that the more you go along, you go around the wheel more times, you know, around the block more times, it'll be easier. But Saturn can cause depression, sadness, you know, feelings of loss. But remember, if you have these feelings, that these are normal responses, right? And what you have to do then is really acknowledge how you feel and then express what it is that you're wanting. It's kind of like if Saturn's the teacher and I don't know, you had a traumatic thing happen and you missed a class, but you want to do well in the class, and you go up to teacher Saturn and you're like, hey, I had this thing going on. He doesn't really, he cares, but he doesn't care, because what he cares more about is you. Well, I don't know if I can speak for him like that. Let me back this up. Say you missed a quiz because something else was going on emotionally, right? Then you go up to the teacher and you ask if you can be like, hey, can I do a redo? Or, or even before the situation, say you knew something was going to come up and you're like, hey, can I have my homework so that while I'm away, I can still study, because I appreciate this class and I want to be a part of this, and I want to pass this class. Saturn would be more than happy, Or again, if Saturn's like, hey, anybody want to put in a little extra, anyone want to, a couple extra points on there, you want to pick up something extra, and you're like, yeah, willing to put it in, this will help. It says very few people are so in touch with themselves that they can react to Saturn positively. In a very real sense, Saturn is the teacher, but it is each of us teaching ourselves about what we really are. Huh. So something to think about. I'll let you sit with that for now, and I'll make a separate, I'm going to take a little time to center myself, and I'll be back shortly and we'll go through each of the houses, okay? Remember, this is if you want, this is the end of suffering. And I keep saying this sentence. If you are in touch with what you truly want in life, and you thoroughly understand your needs and your wants, Saturn will bring about this manifestation. Okay? I mean, does it take effort? Does it take responsibility? Does it take patience, dedication, devotion, step by step? Yes. You can't rush it, right? It's a 2.5 year thing. It's you can't get your your master's or what have you in 2 months, right? It usually takes a master's takes 2 years. I didn't go to college. I didn't finish. But remember, it's something like that. But again, it takes your hard work. It takes your attention. It takes your endurance. Yes. But it creates a physical manifestation that actually can stay with you for 30 years if you want. It can do that. It gets that part of you. And of course, one of the deepest things to me that I've learned through Saturn is emotional security. Recognizing the ability to be responsible for your own emotional well-being. Because sometimes being selfless actually creates selfish people in your life. Or again, too empathic will create the narcissist, will manifest the narcissist to show you, here, if you're real low and this is that, Saturn's going to come to try to balance it out, teach you about relationships, how to, again, care about yourself, really. But this can come in many different forms. So believe that, whatever has happened in your life, It has been there for you to learn how to trust yourself. This is also a time of trust, okay? And believing in your heart that you are equally, again, a part of the equation. So sorry. Right? That you're important too. I mean, are you more important than anyone else? No, that would be an illusion. But because are we all connected? We're all connected to spirit, right? Crown chakra here. But we are also sacral chakra on this earth to learn about how to emotionally connect, how to physically connect, learn about sex, to learn about feelings, to learn about people and judgments and hard work, or what it means to achieve. And it's how to let go of control, what we are in control of. It's really wild things. And the cool thing is if mentally, and especially I see also the spiritual sense when we get in this Pisces too, this creates such a beautiful reality. Maybe everything you ever dreamed about, if you want. Excuse me. So I guess in closing, remember that any fated events that have happened, be like, oh, that was my fate. It's like, well, that was nothing more than the universe responding to your own actions or what your soul needed. So that something could become more firm, more solid. Because again, it's almost like Aquarius is too hard and Pisces is too soft. Right? So again, it's this middle road. It's the path, it's the narrow path. Neptune also plays a role in this. We'll have to roll that in afterwards. That's another story. Because remember, we have Jupiter aspecting this, Neptune, etc. So Pluto too. There's a lot of generational energy in here, which is also something that perhaps is a part of what is a karma completion of sorts, at least to some degree with certain stages, right? Thank heaven. I love you so much. Talk to you next time. Peace.